about now? You. Testing, testing. Alright, we good. We got that. People are watching. Tired. Move this somewhere else. Move this right here. Real quick. Okay, guess that should be good. Should probably, yeah, hold on. Let me just change this real quick. I need to go over here. This. Now I need, where is it? You know what, you might go right here instead. Oh, my fucking lag. Alright, let me copy this. Alright, let me just go into it.
The world of...
Wait, I could get ads from here? What the fuck?
Once human experienced a catastrophic event known as Starfall.
Shit, check out fucking...
This screenshot right here is one of the first few opening seconds of this game, showing authentic footage of an execution in Nanjing, China, recorded in 1937. The question I want to ask, apart from why it says Indochina instead of Nanjing, is what purpose does footage of two men being executed serve for the game? Whether you find this inclusion tasteless or not, this ultimately grounds World at War in the theme it aims for, mixing real-life occurrences with fiction in an interactive medium. World at War is an uncomforting and sometimes depressing game. Treyarch brandishes their unapologetic approach to storytelling that conveys multiple emotions. WoW, on the surface level, appears to be another one of those goddamn anti-Christian brain-melting video games. But
Wait, is this... TOS? Oh shit. Real quick. Damn it, you got us. Hold up again, my bad. My bad. Alright. I think that's it, right? Let me double check. Input this white. Why? Alright, I think that should be it.
But underneath that mask of video game tropes lies something more sinister, grounded in reality. Its campaign to multiplayer and the only reason we buy COD nowadays deceptively appear normal, right until you dig in a little more, peeling back the curtain where I'm hiding with the answers to your questions. And no, Dad is not coming home. World at War is a horror game through and through. It's built itself off the real war atrocities and entertains the idea of America's Triangle Eye persona, even going as far as to make an entire story off of a secret Nazi weapon conspiracy theory. Without World War II, there is no zombies mode, there is no Tom Hanks, and there is no Oppenheimer. Call of Duty World at War. Your granddad experienced the war, so you don't have to. The moment you boot up World at War, bam! Film reel of archived war footage flashes by, linking the connections between fiction and reality to the player. Then we see the main menu. It's unconventional. Other games will present you themselves with a bombastic flair, backed by some awesome music to prepare you for an epic match of spawning and then dying over and over.
I spawned and I ran into a Semtex which stuck to me.
World at War has restraint, sequencing multiple empty theaters of battle, occupied by fearful sounds. The choir of the defeated echoes on, and so the stage is set. The game
could have
begins
said
with the
it.
best intro to any Call of Duty game. It's a timeline of how the Americans got involved with the Second World War. Apart from heinous war crimes, the Japanese were making serious money moves, expanding land and taking over railroads in French-occupied Indochina, which the United States grew reasonably jealous of. So the Big D didn't want to share any of his toys anymore. They took back Tom Hanks and installed an embargo to prevent Japan from borrowing Daniel Plainview's oil. So Japan responded with meow. Meow. What the hell? America love war now. As we know already, the intro showcases real footage from the war. Back then, it's possible to believe that small niche studio Treyarch got it approved. But now, Xi Jinping is our Fortnite duo.
Make an atoll. Little more than sand.
Oh, back then, it's popping is our
Activision removes Tiananmen Square footage in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War trailer following China's ban.
Fortnite duo.
Make an atoll. Little more than sand, trees, and
Yeah,
a
was
small
that in there?
Japanese
I can't
military
remember.
base. Miller's reconnaissance team landed there almost a week ago. Since then, we've heard nothing. For all we know, they're already dead. If what little we know about the Japanese is true, it might be better if they are.
Might be. You're undershooting the potentials there, mate. The Japanese were so draconian to POWs, this would stem from the average Japanese soldier being brainwashed into the idea that surrender was dishonorable. So this means that if you surrendered to be a prisoner to the Japanese, you were tortured, made to work, and sometimes were an experiment in one of the plethora of prison camps. It's a treatment worse than death, because at least when you're dead, you don't feel anything, unless spectate mode is biblically accurate. Japan had only left the age of the samurai around 70 years prior, yet the ideologies of the Bushido, a samurai's honor code, lived on. An oath which contains a variety of stipulations, one of which were that if you did something shameful, one way to redeem yourself was to do seppuku, an act where you slice your stomach, where afterwards your Fortnite duo cuts your head off. Then his Fortnite duo had to cut his head off, because it was disrespectful for him to cut your head off too clean that it rolled on the floor. And yes, my fellow viewers, this is an excuse to slide in more Japanese weebery to the channel. You can never escape me.
The harakiri is a very positive, very proud way of death. It is very different from the Western concept of suicide. Western concept of suicide is always defeat itself, but harakiri sometimes makes you win.
Yet, sadly, this outdated sentiment still carries on today. Japan's high rates of suicide can be linked to that idea of shame, manifesting from its different sources, a big one being shame targeting. In some cases, people are shamed for not getting into a good university or fail to meet social expectations, becoming outcasted. Back to Call of Duty, you're a prisoner.
You think because you say nothing. You are strong?
To him, you are less than nothing for surrendering, but he figured he could do with a new ashtray.
貴様は強くない。
After then, we are rescued by the walk and stud of patriotism. Given our freedom gun, we are then free to roam. This game excels at placing you in unwelcoming environments, as if you're an alien, unadaptable to your surroundings. After all, the whole game is in foreign land. The Americans fight in Japanese-occupied territory, and the Russians rush to Site B in German mainland. The environments always work against you, fighting literal uphill battles against endless hordes of enemies towering over you. It places you in the vulnerable shoes of a soldier. You are one of many, yet expendable. In their land, their blood, the environment is dirty because in the 40s, there is actually a lot of farmland untouched by this new technology called cobblestone. Russians annexing German land isn't particularly clean. As a result, everything is disorganized, the textures are rough around the edges and are haphazardly destructive. It feels like the environment wasn't carefully made. It's the Midas's touch of chaoticism. Contrary to later Call of Duty games, becoming this weirdly confused web of themes, which aim for more sterile yet vibrant worlds in supposedly depressing circumstances, it encompasses this Michael Balian approach to its narrative, full of less than subtle writing.
Do you speak Japanese?
Well, I am 1 week into Duolingo, and I can say good morning. Is that good enough? I don't even know what this game wants to be. On one half, it can be spooky with its music and environmental
that shit game
storytelling,
was
and on the
ass.
other, it wants to be epic. Men in suits with t-shirts love that word, epic.
World War II is known for huge epic battles on big battlefields.
Epic battles, bro. There was so many people died in that shit. How So fucking
epic
trauma.
battles.
Call of Duty Advanced Writing, Prepare to Cry Edition. Copy that. Vanguard is afraid to discomfort the player, pulling punches and cushioning the horrors of war behind a trendy personality that is 80 years ahead of itself.
I'm too old for this shit!
Keep yourself bandaged up. I don't want you bleeding out and missing all the fun.
Hang on back there.
I see a ton of shit outside that goes boom. Train go boom.
Even visually, the game looks too clean and vibrant. Maybe it's one of the rare downsides of improvements in graphics. Perhaps World at War's dated oatmeal-looking graphics play to its advantage. An incomprehensible mess of rubble, blood, and dirt that tries to imitate realism. Americans will plow through the Japanese forces like a wave of fire, leaving behind a charred, flattened land populated by bodies and the
Wait, how the fuck did he get the ray gun? What the fuck? I didn't know you could get the ray gun in campaign.
hollow shells of tanks. In Vanguard, we have our special pretty boys. In World at War, we have our dirty, old and disheveled Russian who tries to appear human. In Blowtorch and Corkscrew, the aesthetics of this level is muddy. Literally. The weapons here have been specially textured to be wet and dirty to accommodate this mountainous terrain, showered in rain. It's tired and sloppy, like a pyrocynical video. It reflects your fellow men who are desperately grasping onto the strength to continue watching, but they just can't. I don't know if you know anything about war media, but they love mud. A lot. That's a lot of mud. Oh, it's not supposed to go in there. Another thing which reinforces that sense of horror is that cutscenes and pivotal moments occur in diegetic gameplay. Like how Half-Life Story doesn't pause the controls. Holy fuck, where's the skip button? World at War narrates everything to you while you play. It does, but it rarely takes the controls away. Half-Life did it one time, so legally World at War can still do it. Call of Duty Vanguard, on the other hand, is the world's most expensive movie. The faces look pretty, I guess. The lighting is pretty cool. War is unapologetic. In the Vendetta mission, you start on a pile of bird food who were previously your friends. The coloring here is so grey that the very first thing that you're drawn to is the blood which has been spilled, a discernible shade of red amongst the drab scene of death. And for the rest of the level, it continues like this, a hopeless shade of defeat in the city of Stalingrad. World at War's colors are generally flat. They stick to one hue, which dictates the mood of a level. Succeeding Call of Duty games have so much more to show, with so much less to convey. Like, give me an emotive color scheme. COD 4's All Gillied Up was grey, which pretty much represented desolation. Modern Warfare 2, it took the sandy desert storm aesthetic and brought it to America. So instead of wasting your time going to war, we brought it here. Oh, and also in Black Ops 3, I don't remember much from Black Ops 3. Train Go Boom, I guess? This
We
is
don't talk
war.
about that
It's
one.
distressingly depressing. So for
I mean-
future reference, unless it's...
The campaign, I mean, it was not good. The campaign was fucking awful. I don't think it even had a connection to like the first two. Multiplayer was fine, and Zombie was good, so I guess it passes.
parody. Let's keep the Malians outside of the cinematic universe, okay, Sledgehammer? By now, you all know about the Raygun Easter egg. The designer who made this Easter egg didn't tell anyone about it. And when word got out, he nearly got fired, so good job, guys. You stand as some
Wow.
critters, wait for statues to emerge, and you get gunned. But when activating the EE, a contorted voice is heard. Usually, people write it off as eldritch wizard jargon, but YouTuber Russell used a real-life cheat code, which is getting a friend to slow it down, reverse, and translate it for you.
Wait, so even for a single second we had to try our best to hold the enemy back. The enemy forces are likely to reinforce. Our army must stop the enemy completely. I repeat, defend the command center by any means necessary. Don't let the enemy forces.
This distress obviously referring to the Americans infinitely spawning from the ocean. At first, I thought the statues carrying the ray gun were Akuma Inu, or lion dogs, guardians of the deities of shrines. But they're actually an Okinawan Shisa. They're like the Akuma Inu, but Mom has one at home. Fundamentally, they're the same. They are both borrowed from China, like the language. Typically, one will have a mouth open for offerings, and the other will have a mouth closed to stop corruption from taking over, which, you know, just makes the stone the biggest cause of friendly fire in history. In real life instances, both the Shisa and the Kome Inu can be seen to be offering coins from their mouth. Much like here, they're offering 10,000 points worth of mystery box attempts. I mean, sometimes they could even be sea-balling. Look at this photo I took when I was there. Now, the fact that this is an Easter egg made by a rogue employee we should completely corporately blacklist, it's likely this has no greater meaning other than being a bit of fun. But this is my schizophrenia session. I'll imagine what I want. I'd like to imagine this was the Japanese last line of defense, as the Kome Inus or the Shisas represent guarding and sometimes offer something. They're on the beach facing the direction of the Americans come from, and they offer an overpowered weapon. There's also that line that plays as they emerge that says, this is the last line of defense. The war is near its end, and the Japanese are at their limit. Land and resources are dwindling, they're desperate, and they accidentally gave the God Hand to God's land. You can actually see them in the late game when you're actually in Okinawa, placed around, typically guarding entrances to shrines or temples. In the mission Hard Landing, you are tasked to take down the Japanese anti-air defense, and in the beginning, we can see an allied plane presumably shot down and crash landed. Your men get a closer look in hopes of live comrades, when suddenly, they hit the boogie bomb! They put traps in my boobs. Now, this is a thing the Japanese did not only to dead American soldiers, but amongst their own dead too. And it doesn't even stop there. The Japanese tactics of playing unfair had a profound psychological effect on the American soldier and is ultimately described in the book Darwin and International Relations on the Evolutionary Origins of War and Ethnic Conflict. Okay, world's shortest YouTube title. If we flip through the pages to here, you can find the lines.
You get into a nasty frame of mind in combat. You see what's been done to you. You'd find a dead Marine that the Japs have booby-trapped. We found dead Japs that were booby-trapped. And they mutilated the dead. Began to get down to their level. We learned about savagery from the Japanese, but those 16 to 19-year-old kids who we have in the canal were fast learners.
Okay, now this is the section where the essay YouTuber does an analysis on death and why it's bad.
I'm going to die!
Deaths in video games by themselves aren't scary. Most players are desensitized to fictional death. However, it does depend on the genre, how it's portrayed and what connections the audience may have to characters. For example, Until Dawn, deaths in that game are tense because the whole time you're trying to prevent the characters from being killed. All that anticipation and effort makes the kill shots shocking when they eventually become Wendigo food. And they can be fairly gruesome too. Red Dead Redemption 2 is practically Cowboy Sopranos. When you see one fella go, you begin to worry for the others. Fate is definite, and the gang slowly turns inside out by their own hands.
But lately I'm getting the feeling that I came in at the end. The best is over.
Remember Pearl Harbor?
Now let's look at Mortal Kombat, a game no one plays but watches the fatality compilations every time a new game releases. These breaches of war crimes are a spectacle. With every new release, people want to see more and new creative ways this game's characters are mutilated because we're all so numb inside and want to feel something. And then they go back to playing a better game like Melty Blood.
China.
But when you're in a theater of war, seeing the struggle of someone becoming a hot summer's barbecue with a Corona and lime is a lot more horrifying to see than someone ragdolling after being no-scoped, screaming as their skin is peeling as they thrash around in desperation, attempting to snuff the flames. There's an entire mission dedicated to this atrocity, subtly called Burn 'Em Out. Men will be mutilated and have dismembered parts, screaming in pain, sometimes attempting to crawl away from you. Some even hung by Russians as a stark warning to those who oppose the Red Army, undressing them of their dignity, only leaving a warning with a sign pinned to them that says, "Traitors to the motherland." Making the player uncomfortable is achieved effectively depending on how you portray death. Battlefield 1 begins with intro text to set the scene. You are in a war to end all wars. What follows is frontline combat. You are not expected to survive.
We're surrounded!
You are thrown in, fighting the enemy in what pathetic cover remains. You are demanded to stand your ground, to fight back. This is a test of endurance, and is ultimately futile. No matter how skilled you are with the gun, you will soon run out of ammo, places to hide, fellow comrades. The enemy waves appear endless, but you still fight on, with the hope that the game will go quiet and say, the fight is won. But you aren't rewarded with that positive sense of accomplishment. Instead, you are to bacon defeat in front of a birth-to-death date before being shifted haphazardly to the next playable cannon fodder, soon to be killed. In this, emotions clash together. It's presented that these men all have lives, names, having roles to serve in their life. However, when put amongst many other men, neither are in the spotlight for their efforts. You are not expected to survive, and this war ended nothing. World at War, even at one point, tricks you. In the mission Black Cat, you are tasked with a night raid to sink Japanese merchant ships to disrupt the flow of resources. In history, these merchant ships would oftentimes carry ammo, weapons, and did I mention prisoners of war? These same merchant ships often would be gunned down by Allied submarines or planes, killing or injuring those POWs. Oh, and did I mention that the Allies didn't even know? What's even worse is that at the start of the mission, you are told this.
Unmarked Japanese merchant fleet. Designation unknown.
They're probably resupplying the enemy on Okinawa.
Legitimate targets?
Affirmative. They're part of the enemy war machine. Permission to engage. Over and out.
Roger that.
Given the good to go, you potentially attack Japanese ships that contain American POWs, or you could just, shoot your own fucking wingmates.
Shoot your guy.
Listen, my gamer brain. This game accurately places you in a situation where you might kill allies without giving you the knowledge of it. Right until you did your homework for a YouTube video and realized... Oh, fuck. At least the music goes hard. Speaking of music, let's discuss sounds. I love the soundtrack. It has its rock and gritty themes for battle, but in quiet times it's moody. It has screeches of violence, almost horror-like in its build-ups. In the bird feed aisle at the pet shop, you awaken to a harmonic cry over your heartbeat as your vision focuses in, as if you're at an end, watching your comrades die. When your safety comes to be realized, the sound disappears. Let's not forget the sound design. One of my favorite examples is on Ring of Steel. Midway through this level, you enter an asylum, which is Verrückt before Epic. The choice of audio is homogeneous with the visuals. When entering this place, the battlefield becomes quiet. It's almost like the game has let go of your hand and almost wants you to look around to investigate the atrocities the Germans have done here. The evidence is found in spades. If you listen carefully over the sounds of explosions, this atmosphere is set by sounds of scraping metal, like a medical tool is being brandished.
I mean, there's like that and also in Verrückt.
There's either faint sounds of rats scuttering in the corners or otherwise whispers of the dead. This small but detailed setup harbors the essence of these desolate emotions.
I don't know which one is scary. This one,
I love it.
I'm pretty sure Verrückt is a bit more scarier.
Keep moving. Keep killing.
Reznov in the entirety of World at War is a menacing character, a man of brutal means to make ends meet, a man who basks in the victories but is humble about his losses. In battle, he's starkly contrasted by the other character, Chernov, who Reznov constantly berates.
It's Nikolai.
Which do you think will lead us home? Writing about this war or fighting it? Germany in the blood. No one will ever read this.
Chernov is the opposite of Reznov, having more empathy and recognizes fighting apart from murder.
Chernov! I am not hearing gunshots. There is no point, Sergeant. They are already bleeding to death.
And you, Dmitri, are a product of one of these characters' influences. Are you inspired by Reznov's unforgiving means of action, following in his footsteps, or Chernov's more compassionate approaches towards surrenders and such? Chernov documents the war through his empathetic lens in his diary. Because you are a participant of this war, your role has a significance. Throughout the game, depending on your behavior towards men who surrender, Chernov keeps notes on who you are. What are you writing about me? Give me that. I know you're talking shit about me in that. When charging the Reichstag at the end of the game, Chernov becomes Churkol, and Reznov finally displays compassion at the end.
Dmitri! Someone should read this.
Insisting that someone read his documentation of the war effort. Despite Reznov's rough and around-the-edge attitude, this shows he loves and cares for all of his brothers. He only wanted to keep morale up, keeping his comrades with him and without abandonment. This worked in the end. Chernov carried the flag up proud to the Reichstag, playing his part until the end. The final level begins with an entry of Chernov's diary, which changes depending on whether you spared surrendering Germans or not.
When he first spoke of Dmitri, Reznov told tales of a hero, someone we should all aspire to be like. His bravery on the battlefield is beyond question, but he has also shown mercy, Amidst the brutality of the Red Army, he is indeed a hero. His merciless brutality defines him only as a savage, just like the rest of the Red Army. He is no hero.
Damn. So it's like two endings.
When you play
Well,
a
not really
linear
ending.
action shooter
Like,
shooter
you know what I
game,
mean.
you never stop to think how the game may perceive your actions and judge you. You might assume that in a game like an immersive sim, but rarely or never has it been done with a video game like Call of Duty. A game that is essentially a shooting gallery with a fixed path and ending. The last game that I can recall that expanded on this idea was Black Ops 2. In that game, you could unlock different endings depending on how you played. Even inconsequential moments can happen, like even charring Michael Rooker's face, which lasts with him for the rest of the game. Look at his puppy eyes. How cute. Especially in a game like World at War, where the numbers of men are so large, you're meant to feel insignificant, so much so that you're sent to kill other men involuntarily because of the powers that be, perhaps becoming the very evil you seek to end. You are judged on whether you disdain the act of robbing a man's life, or if you revel in the act. When you finally finish the war in the peak of all of its horror, after overcoming all odds, after losing so many, World at War presents a speech from President Truman's plans to end the war in the East, which then overlays one of humanity's biggest atrocities ever inflicted onto itself. The Enola Gay, dropping the little boy on Hiroshima, which then it closes off in the text saying, 60 million lives were lost as a result of World War II. And that is why Call of Duty World at War is actually the horror game, with its conveyance of emotion through
Oh, I
bleak
completely
colors
forgot that was
to
his
being
topic.
rich in historical context. There's a reason World at War is heralded as the best, and why people still make videos about it to this day. I did have a whole section written out for the multiplayer and zombies mode, but I feel Alex Shakes described it best in empty multiplayer maps are unsettling, and Leon Talksalot did it best with his Verrucht and Darice videos. Honestly, if I said anything here, I would be regurgitating the mashed bird feed of thoughts down your throats. So definitely go watch those videos instead. You already have anyway, so watch it again. Thank you all for watching. I actually have a Twitter, it's @RamskerXD. I got more content to come, so sit back and wait another month or two for that. Hope you all enjoyed. Have a good night.
God, that's such a good video. So fucking quiet. So fucking, it's shit interesting, right? Does he have it, the links to it or not? The Verrucht one,
The
let me see.
future is not just gonna happen. You have to make it. And if you want a
Before Gobblegum, buildables, or convoluted Easter eggs, COD Zombies had an aesthetic. The world of COD Zombies was a nightmare filled with hordes of undead.
Oh yeah, fuck. Let me go back real quick. Hey, whoever's watching this, go subscribe to Ramsker. Leave a like. It's a good ass video. Alright, let me go back.
Before Gobblegum,
Also with Leon talks a lot too.
Buildables, or convoluted Easter eggs, COD Zombies had an aesthetic. The world of COD Zombies was a nightmare filled with hordes of undead in a desperate struggle to stay alive. And no map fulfills this aesthetic more than Verrückt. Verrückt was the second Zombies map to have ever been released. It took place in a German insane asylum during World War II. Based on the very real Wittenauer Sanatorium in Berlin, its rooms echo of the torment of patients deemed insane and unworthy during the reign of the Third Reich. Psychopaths, schizophrenics, and people with autism were all kept here against their will, and would be subjugated to the pseudoscientific ideology of 1940s Germany. And the things I uncovered while trying to understand more about what went on here led me down a rabbit hole deeper than your favorite inspirational quote. So let's talk about it. As COD Zombies proved to be more popular than initially anticipated, the geniuses at Treyarch were tasked with the expansion of the COD Zombies game mode. They took what worked on Nacht der Untoten and spare gameplay ideas they were considering, and on March 19th, 2009, Verrückt was sold to the public with Map Pack 1 for World at War. With it came the addition of perks, the power switch, zombie traps, and some tweaks to the AI of the zombies. Zombies on Verrückt were faster, deadlier, and smarter. They would not only kill players in fewer hits, they would even reach through barriers to try and attack. Not only this, but they would also run like really run. The zombies on Verrückt are more akin to the zombies of Left 4 Dead, sprinting full tilt at any player in sight. Mixed with the close quarters map layout, this map was one of the most challenging maps COD Zombies has ever seen. If Nachtdown Toten was regular water, then Verrückt was iced water with gum.
Damn, it's minty. Oh, need some water.
The map did not fuck around, making it an exceptional map for those looking for a more challenging zombie experience. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, I'll just play with friends. 4 guns is always better than 1. If you play on Verrückt with more than one other person, your party gets separated on opposite sides of a wall that will only lower once the power is turned on. With this map, you have to use every advantage the map offers you. High round Verrückt runs make use of not only bouncing betties, but also the electroshock traps mentioned earlier. The gameplay of Verrückt mirrors its setting like many good games do. Stalker, for example, is not a hard game because the devs resent their players, but because the playable area, nicknamed the Zone, is a brutal place. One small mistake in the zone will kill anyone inside of it, including the player. Gameplay mirrors environment, and the environment of Verrückt is nightmare fuel. Being mentally ill in the German 1940s must have been the wrongest time in the wrongest place. People with schizophrenia, autism, anxiety disorders, depression, and ADHD were all looked down on by the Third Reich. Seen as people who were not worthy of their life, people who did not have goals or ambitions, the state did not allow these people their human right of family. Thousands of mentally ill patients were forcibly sterilized in an attempt to selectively breed desirable people in order to create a so-called master race. Not only this, but they would also serve as test subjects for the creation of the gas chamber, originally using carbon monoxide instead of the now infamous cyanide-based Zyklon B. Over 450,000 people were killed in these asylums, torn from their families, gassed, then burned. Often the state would tell these families that their loved ones died of pneumonia and send them urns filled with random ashes scooped from the ground. If they weren't killed, they would often starve. Food was rationed out to the most productive members of society, often excluding those who were too mentally ill to work. Verrückt displays this history in droves. It's based on the very real Wittenauer sanatorium, where such atrocities were committed. In fact, on the real place, there lies a plaque commemorating the victims that were deemed useless by the Third Reich.
Wait, this should actually happen?
The game, the asylum is haunted, not only by the literal zombies rising out of the ground, but also by ghostly voices weeping in various parts of the map. A great example of this is the so-called Whispering Morgue. When the player stands near the morgue, a woman, baby, or man can be heard. This is far from the only place where this can happen, however. In the room with the trench gun, a man can be heard screaming. In the room with a wheelchair near the Thompson, a man can also be heard screaming. In a room with the dentist chair, if the player interacts with the wheel of the chair, a drill can be heard accompanied by a man screaming. The exact same sound effect as the dentist's office in Kino der Toten. In the hallway with Speed Cola, next to an inaccessible door near the kitchen, whispering can be heard. But while ambient sounds of the mentally ill killed here are scary, they aren't even close to the most interesting part of the map. In the room with the sawn-off shotgun near the kitchen, as well as in the kitchen itself, writings made with blood can be seen. From what I know about mental illness, these are clearly the ramblings of a patient suffering with schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is often portrayed as audible hallucinations of voices telling them what to do. However, this is far from accurate when it comes to the reality of the illness. While auditory hallucinations can be prevalent in someone suffering from schizophrenia, it is far from the most significantly impairing symptom. Schizophrenics have a different thought process focused around paranoid delusions. Fears that they are being prosecuted, that their thoughts can be heard, and their world is coming to an end are all common in schizophrenics, seemingly drawing conclusions between otherwise unconnected subjects in relation to each other. However, this is not what these writings depict. In fact, these writings are very enlightened to the situation at hand and make several references to zombies, the Group 935, and even the Illuminati. This leads me to believe that either this patient is enlightened somehow through his schizophrenia or was an active participant in the Group 935. Let me explain. These writings are a texture. This is the texture file of these writings, giving us a far better look at them. And this is a fucking genius. I have no fucking clue how this man was able to decipher these writings, but he damn well did it. This guy is very knowledgeable about cryptography. This is the type of motherfucker to have the Rosetta Stone as his wallpaper background. So in this segment, I'll be heavily drawing from his interpretations of the writings in his video simply titled Verrückt Wall Writings. A link to it will be in the description. I highly suggest you watch the video for yourself. But enough dick sucking. Let's get into it. The first writing is the name Hans. This likely refers to Hans Kammler, a Nazi civil engineer who oversaw the construction of Auschwitz and the V2 rocket. This could also be a reference to the Der Riese, which is based on the real Nazi project which Hans might have had a hand in. However, it's far more likely that this is a reference to Franz Xaver von Zwack, who presumably encrypted his writings with the cipher used by the Illuminati, a canonical part of the COD Zombies universe. These signs and symbols are seen in the writings. Using our translator sheet, we can decode the other messages. The first one spelling out Living Dead in reference to the zombies. The other spelling out OHM 935, referring to the Group 935 responsible for the zombies. Our next writing is luckily in plain English. Nerve impulses generated by the motor neurons activate the muscles to which the stretch receptor is attached. This would explain how the zombies are still alive, relying on their nerve impulses in the spine and motor neurons. Our next writing is my favorite, a Bible verse, Jeremiah 9:21. Death has climbed through our windows and has entered our fortress. It has removed the children from the streets and the young men from the public squares. This is an obvious and very clear nod to the zombies, particularly had they entered the asylum through the windows. When the player repairs barricades, they are quite literally keeping death out of their fortress, which is super fucking neat. I fucking love shit like this. Our next writing is a date, November 3rd, 1942, the day Hitler orders Rommel to stand and fight in Egypt. The order reading, in the situation in which you find yourself, there can be no other thought but to stand fast and throw every gun and every man into the battle, likely being a reference to the endless hordes of zombies we fight in the game mode, as if Rommel had personally ordered the men to fight. The zombies, being Nazi soldiers, still ingrained this order into their minds even after death. Our next writing is a date, June 24th, 1938, when a meteor exploded over Chicora, Pennsylvania. This is likely a reference to the element 115, seeing as how it makes its first appearance as a meteorite fragment in Shinonuma. Perhaps this meteor was made of the element, explaining the supply of it at the Nevada base used by Broken Arrow, the American counterpart of the Group 935. Our next writing is The Hanging Man, presumably being a reference to the spy Peter McCain hanging from a noose in Shinonuma. Our next writing is the most simple, being a drawing of a zombie eating a human arm. Our nextest writing is also in plain English, stating that Teddy is a liar. Teddy is also a nickname given to Richtofen by Samantha. Our second to last writing is something familiar, being round tally marks identical to the ones used up to round 6. Our last writing is not a writing at all. It's a drawing of buildings and death, presumably foreseeing the apocalypse caused by zombies post-war. All in all, whoever wrote these writings with blood had knowledge of not only the Illuminati, but also the Group 935.
I may be wrong, but it may be Samantha. I'm probably wrong on this, or it could be some other guy that went to the moon, that was teleported, touched the pyramid, and then went back, and then he went crazy, and then he was sent to the camp.
By Peter McCain, Broken Arrow, Richtofen, and the biology of the.
Some of you probably don't even know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it's a whole zombie lore, so yeah, it's a bit confusing, especially at the timeline.
Zombies, as well as the element 115. Now the only question left is who wrote them. An answer I'll leave to the comments to figure out. And that is the full story of Verrückt, its secrets, and its never-ending rabbit hole of its lore. Now looking back on my Nacht video, I can say that my thoughts about it have certainly changed. I was too harsh with my first impressions, because Verrückt is a beautifully unique zombies experience. So, if you'd consider yourself a good zombies player, then go load up a game of Verrückt. Let's see how many rounds you really last when all the odds are stacked against you. God, I'm fucking sick as a dog. Thanks for watching.
Hell no, because I'm scared of those shits. I'm scared of playing alone. But I could even play Kino alone. I'm not gonna play Verrückt. I'm scared as a little kid. kind of scared now, but you know, no point. Not the point. Let me change topics. This video. Yeah, this one.
The future is not just gonna happen. You have to make it. And if you want a
To those you serve, your life means nothing!
Raul Menendez is one of the coldest motherfuckers in the series, and let me tell you why. In my Black Ops 1 video, I said the overall mediocrity of that game's villains must have made Treyarch try extra hard in Black Ops 2, and I've decided to qualify this statement. Trust me, Dragovich McClimptic over there has nothing on this fine specimen. Let's compare the first actual meeting we get with these characters. In the jungles of Angola, we get the drop on Menendez, and his attitude toward us isn't even fearful. He's looking at us like dirt. He's got this smug grin on his face throughout the entire thing. Dragovich is also pretty smug when you meet him, but I'll give you 3 seconds to spot the difference.
One is Russian, one is not.
Yeah, it's the fucking gun,
Oh.
obviously. It's easy to
Way
gloat
off.
when your enemy is catatonic on the ground, so Dragovich's character has no distinguishing traits in his introductory scene. We clearly have the upper hand on Menendez, but his sheer lack of fucks to give keeps the scene tense and immediately adds intrigue to his character. But maybe this is a bit hasty. How did we even get here? Well, okay, explaining this is kinda awkward since Black Ops 2 jumps between the 1980s and the oh-so-distant year of 2025. The player first learns of Menendez in the intro cutscene of the game, where an older Menendez visits a really older Frank Woods, who, by the way, survived Black Ops 1. Surprise!
All he said was, mi hermana. That's Spanish for sister, dipshit.
Woods' account implies a long personal history between these two that will eventually be explained, but let's focus on the beginning. The year is 1986. Raul Menendez is a Nicaraguan gunrunner who's been trading with the Soviets, but that's not even remotely why Alex Mason is here. After the grueling events of Black Ops 1, Mason quit the military and started a family in Alaska. But one day, our old pal Hudson showed up. Woods and his squad had been poking around Menendez's operation in Angola, but they got themselves captured. The CIA decided it was way too risky to attempt a rescue mission, so Hudson turned to Mason for help. Mason had no choice but to answer the call. This wasn't about war, it was about saving a friend. We eventually recover Woods, who's in really bad shape, but, you know. There's a problem, though. Because Mason's aircraft curse has struck again, we have no way out. So the gang creeps around until Mason stumbles upon a radio tower where you can call for extraction. And that brings us here. I'll be honest, this entire sequence is fucking Kino. In this one scene, Menendez shows more charisma and grit than Dragovich does in his whole game. Mason thinks he's safe with Menendez as a human shield, but this couldn't be further from the truth.
Los americanos no saben nada sobre la lealtad. Quizás nosotros deberíamos demostrar.
You see, it's hard to pin this guy down. Mason's control of the situation dwindles by the second. With cunning and ruthlessness, Menendez turns a hostage situation into a fight for survival, which he almost wins. Mason makes it out alive, and obviously Menendez does too, because we don't want a time paradox on our hands. But even if we weren't jumping around the timeline, you'd have to suspect something is up, because that was way too cool of an action scene to waste on a throwaway character. Most of the CQC cutscenes in Call of Duty are either quick kills against nameless mooks or a final climactic slugfest with the game's big bad. But this felt a bit different. Scrappy, quick, dynamic. As I said, fucking Kino. So Team Mason eventually escapes Angola. You may notice that Alex Mason isn't here to tell this story, and that's because he is, in fact, dead. But who is here is Alex's son, David, also known as Section. He's the protagonist of Black Ops 2 and the main player character for the 2025 portion of the game. Woods knows quite a lot about Menendez. He's done stints as a crime lord and Soviet collaborator, but in the modern era he's become something even more monstrous. A social media influencer. Yeah, Menendez eventually launched a group called Quartus Dia, an online anti-capitalist movement which is now 2 billion members strong. I love how they kind of throw that out there like 2 billion isn't a fucking crazy number. Like, who's his social media manager? Or does he just sit there and make all of his clickbait YouTube thumbnails by himself?
Bruh.
I'm one step ahead of me.
Okay.
The long and short of it is, he has grown very powerful and very influential, and all of it is in service of making his enemies pay. He is, and I quote,
The most dangerous terrorist since Osama bin Laden.
he's cunning, manipulative, and remorseless. The guy doesn't believe in half measures. He'll get his way even if it takes half his life to prepare for it. I think it's really neat that Menendez has a personal impact on all the characters in the game. Even Section has some confusing Menendez-related flashbacks when his head gets thwacked hard enough.
Come on, go suffer with me.
Treyarch are really determined to give us perspective on Menendez, as throughout the game his past is brought up a few times. When Menendez was a child, Nicaragua was in the middle of a brutal revolutionary war, and he was growing up in a country ravaged by the US-backed Contras. This got even worse when in 1972 the country was rocked by a massive earthquake that left his family destitute. Only a year later, his sister Josefina was badly injured and disfigured in a fire. The fire was no accident. Its American owner torched it for insurance money and got $11,000 out of it.
$11,000. That was the value they placed on her life.
That's when he started the cartel with his dad, until the CIA grew nervous and took out old Papa Menendez. This prompted a career change. Now he had a goal deeper than material wealth. He started dealing weapons and getting cozy with America's enemies. Apart from a few minor setbacks, he stayed pretty quiet over the next few decades, building up funds, resources, and followers. Treyarch did a very good job in making sure Menendez's motives were understandable, and that's all it is. Not right, not just, understandable. There's no question that he's a ruthless, despicable villain, but the circumstances that formed him are clear and well explained. But we don't have the whole picture yet. What links Menendez to Woods specifically? Or Section? Does he hold that much of a grudge towards Alex Mason for taking his eye out that he'd go after everyone he loves? Well, maybe that's a factor, but by no means is it the primary reason. The CIA eventually tracked down Menendez to his compound in Nicaragua and called up the president of Panama, Manuel Noriega, for a joint operation to capture Menendez alive. This is the same man who put Woods through a whole lot of hell, so if it were up to him...
Let's smoke this bastard.
Then, unexpectedly, we transition to Menendez's point of view. We get to be in his shoes for a fleeting moment of peace, and it's not often a Call of Duty game has scenes like this. In his sister Josefina's bedroom, Raul isn't a criminal or a warlord. He's just a man in quiet contemplation, doing his best for the only person he has left. Of course, this is short-lived. The Panamanian soldiers storm the room, and they have no intention of killing him, of course, but then they notice Josefina. Raul, up to this point, had an air of cold-blooded confidence. Nothing seemed to really get to him, but as a soldier grabs Josefina and throws her into the cabinet, Raul sees red.
God,
He
Black Ops 2 is
exacts
such a good
vengeance
game.
upon this one man, but the Panamanians retake control quickly. In his rage, there is no reasoning with him, so they have no choice but to sedate him. And when he comes to, he's outside his compound, face to face with Manuel Noriega, who never actually had any loyalty towards the Americans. He lets Menendez free as a little favor, and under calmer circumstances they might have had a nice chat about their aligned interests, but Raul only has one thing on his mind. We actually get to play as Raul Menendez, and we are a whirlwind of bloodlust and righteous rage with one goal: get to Josefina. I wish Raul's bond with his sister was shown to us in greater detail than just
family.
I guess the calm scene at the beginning was meant to do this, but I don't think this alone is strong enough to really sell Raul's rampage. You could argue that it's the opposite. The rampage is meant to sell his bond with Josefina, but this doesn't really land, since Josefina has no character whatsoever. She has no proper dialogue to show off her personality, and she doesn't really do anything, so it's hard not to just see her as a device to develop Raul. Don't get me wrong, on a visceral level this sequence is still fantastic. There really hasn't been something like this in a COD game, where a character's emotional state impacts gameplay so brazenly, but Raul's anger is red hot. The color filter, occasional slow-mo when we slice a motherfucker, and lack of a HUD give a sense of tunnel vision as we barrel our way back to the house. We reach the hallway outside the bedroom, coming face to face with the Americans, some familiar faces among them. Another man stops us, and we wrestle with him, but then we see it. Woods had no idea Menendez's sister was in that room, but when he saw Menendez, he was overcome with rage. Menendez tortured his team to death one by one and left Woods with their remains. Of course Woods would lose his shit, but that's an explanation, not an excuse, and Woods knows it. The events of that day weigh heavily on him, even now. This scene defines Menendez. It defines the cycle of revenge that has plagued his life. For grievances dealt toward him from an early age, he lashed out against his enemies, who threw the heat right back at him. It escalated, burning through everything Menendez treasured: his people, his father, and now his sister. Of course, Menendez himself made it out with his life, but the need for revenge is now the only thing binding him to this earth.
What happened, Hudson? Where's Menendez?
That's him, in a body bag.
Are you sure about that?
So, the ball is in
He's a traitor,
Menendez's
right?
court
Freaked
now.
out.
What does he do? Well, the flashes in Section's mind are becoming more lucid, and Section has a suspicion. Woods said Alex Mason was just killed randomly by some maniac, but little David Mason was kidnapped the day his father died. And that face? There's no mistaking it. That was Menendez. The year is 1989. The United States' relationship with Manuel Noriega has soured, and it doesn't help that Menendez has been spotted in Panama talking with him.
Manuel Noriega, hereforth known as Objective False Prophet.
Woods, Mason, and company have been sent to capture Noriega and make him look like a pervert or something, so the people of Panama aren't motivated to try rescue him, I think. Sounds pretty weird, but it's a
standard grab and smear operation.
Apparently. The grab and smear will be covered by a full-scale invasion of Panama. Simple plan with the full support of the military. Should be an easy one, but something is off.
Let me read this. Code name Just Cause. The primary purpose of the invasion was to depose the de facto Panama's leader, General Manuel Noriega. He was wanted by the U.S. for racketeering and drug trafficking. Okay. Following the operation, the Panama Defense Forces were dissolved, and election. Pretty sure the president-elect Guillermo Endara was sworn into the office. The U.S. National General Assembly of the Organization of American States condemned the invasion as a violation of international law. Okay.
Especially Hudson on comms, who's just not acting like himself. Well, the invasion's already begun, so no time for doubts. Together with Mason, we capture Noriega, and it looks like we're done here, but then we call Hudson. Change of plan. Turns out Noriega has intel on an important target, so instead we're doing a prisoner exchange.
What's more important than Objective False Prophet?
You have to trust me, Mason. You have to.
Well, Woods and Mason are soldiers. It's not their place to question orders. Mason splits off from Woods and Noriega, who take a sniper's nest over the exchange area. It's here that Hudson reveals who the target is. Raul Menendez. He tells Woods to shoot. The circumstances are certainly fishy. Comms have been on the fritz the whole time, the grab and smear became something completely different, and now Woods is being told to kill the prisoner they came here for. But what is Woods meant to do? Soldiers don't question orders. This should be a moment of bliss for Woods. The man who caused him so much pain is dead, but Woods can't shake off a dreadful feeling, and Noriega's smug face just confirms it. He runs towards the body, anxiety growing in his chest, and he pulls off the bag, revealing the corpse of Alex Mason. Woods has been completely tricked, and now he's at the mercy of Raul Menendez. You know, this really shocked me when I played this level for the first time. As someone who played Black Ops 1 first, Alex Mason came across to me as unkillable. Not in the invincible Superman kind of way, but he was a survivor. He withstood Soviet brainwashing, POW camps, and countless scenes of brutal combat. So seeing him dead on the floor, used as mere fodder for Menendez's revenge plot, it shook me to the core. And worst of all, he got me to pull the trigger. Hudson and David had been kidnapped shortly before the invasion began, and now they're joined by Woods and the corpse of Alex Mason.
Now one more, Stein. You, Woods, or David?
I gotta hand it to Treyarch. This decision took some serious cojones. Even though Hudson was significantly less cool in this game, it's a real shame to see such an icon go out like this. Two of Black Ops' major characters have just been wiped out within moments of one another, and they didn't even get to go out with dignity. If Menendez hadn't received proper development and build-up, this scene might have felt like a cheap way to generate drama, but he sure did receive that build-up. His persistence, his cleverness, and his hatred, they were laid out for us to see, and as a result we have one of the most memorable and emotional scenes in the entire series.
I gotta take a piss. Alright, I'm back. Alright, let me just save this. Wait, and we go back to the video.
Your life will be
Oh yeah, subscribe to Hasmord, my bad.
consumed by absolute loss.
Much like how Black Ops 1 was about Victor Reznov, Black Ops 2 is about Raul Menendez, and there are some obvious parallels. They are men who have been wronged so deeply that the quest for revenge completely consumed them. This is the second Black Ops game in a row where a main character has a revenge motive, so what gives? Is Treyarch lazy? Are they out of ideas? I don't think so. Even if the goal is sort of the same, these characters have very different relationships with revenge. Reznov's desire for revenge largely stems from one event, Dragovich's betrayal in Siberia. It was a singular event that decided the rest of his life, but Menendez, revenge is his life. He had been swept up in a life of misery, and anger festered within him. His family were taken from him one by one, leaving him to suffer alone. It's really no wonder that Reznov's idea of revenge is simple. He wants his betrayers dead. But for Menendez, death is a mercy. He could easily finish off Woods and David Mason right here, but
The dead don't suffer. That's why you and I are still here.
Menendez has a real eye for an eye approach. He wants to scar his enemies in the same way he has been scarred, to evoke in Woods and David Mason the same loss he has felt. He tells a barely conscious David Mason,
"You will suffer with me."
He knows that one day, David will recall tonight's events. On that day, the cycle of revenge will continue, and Menendez will be prepared. It breaks my heart seeing Woods force himself to recount all this to Section. I can't imagine the guilt that must have weighed him down, for being the one to kill his closest friend and the father of the man standing before him. You know, Black Ops 1 had some dark moments, but there was always that kind of action movie camp factor that kept it from getting depressing. Black Ops 2, in contrast, is raw. Characters often reflect, ponder, suffer. We really feel the toll the events of the story have exacted on these people. I'm gonna address a caveat here. Alex Mason doesn't necessarily die in Black Ops 2. If you feel some trickery is afoot, then you can shoot Mason in the leg and he'll show up alive and well in the ending.
Al, this is Dave. Dave.
How you doing?
This is your dad.
I don't think this dampens the emotion of that scene, since there's no immediate confirmation that you just saved Mason, and the other characters are definitely still traumatized. I don't know how many people saved Mason first try, I sure didn't, but I do like that they give you this option. It's a rare chance for you, the player, to engage in intellectual battle with this villainous mastermind. I like this way of implementing multiple endings, as it rewards players who paid attention, rather than just laying out some choices on a silver platter. I was gonna go over the rest of the story in detail. With all the chips on the table, we're in 2025 mode till the end, hunting down Menendez. The final act of the story is fine, great even, but Menendez's character really peaked right here, and it would have felt underwhelming to put his best moment in the middle, so I'm gonna speed up, offering commentary where appropriate. The level where we play as Farid, the double agent, is super uncomfortable. They really love showing Menendez off, don't they? Up close and personal too. We've seen the fiery, cocky Menendez plenty, but he's an old man now. Still terrifying, but in a more subdued, sophisticated kind of way. But that anger is still there. Later on, if Farid fails Menendez's test of loyalty, it emerges again, but in a sort of offended manner, like he's a disappointed father. I love this. I get the sense Menendez is actually hurt by this betrayal, and he genuinely can't fathom why someone would side with the Americans, and that lines up perfectly with the kind of single-minded conviction he has. The rest of the campaign doesn't expand on his character all that much, it just focuses on the aftershock of his plans. The only scene of note is when we capture him, letting Section and Menendez talk face-to-face after many years, but it's disappointingly short since he breaks out soon after. Long story short, he creates more havoc around the world, leading us on a goose chase, and then we get to right here. The final choice of the campaign. Menendez's life is in your hands. You could kill him. You could end the cycle of revenge right here. Or, you could do what he did to you. Usually, the spare option in a video game is an act of mercy, but remember,
The dead don't suffer.
Menendez even eggs you on to pull the trigger, ostensibly to make him a martyr for Cordestia, but I think he knows he has nothing to live for anymore. He lost. It's the right time for him to go. I find it hard to finish this game feeling triumphant. In other COD games, there's this sense of mission accomplished at the end, whether it's a simple good guys killed bad guys ending or something more somber. But the events of Black Ops 2 never should have happened. A couple of human beings found themselves in a personal feud, did some terrible fucked up things to each other, and they became bound by suffering. There's no honor in this ending. ending. Section inherited this mess, and he's doing his duty in mopping it up. None of the possible endings are very favorable for Menendez because it's clear that he's lost the will to live. Canonically, you do kill him, and, you know, he dies. But not without letting all 2 billion Quartus Diem members know and starting mass riots around the globe. If you spare him and make the right choices to not let him break out of prison, he straight up goes insane, mocked on television and not allowed to die on his own terms. But if he does break out of prison, he deals with one item of unfinished business.
Sir, think you were gonna make it?
I guess Menendez has decided Woods served his time. Their conversation is pretty short. Not much drama or fanfare here. With the sheer hatred between these two notwithstanding, they don't have a reason to fight or suffer anymore. Menendez confronts Woods about his sister one last time.
You took her from me. What'd you learn from that?
It seems Menendez is giving Woods a final chance to apologize, but Woods throws it back at his face. This line seems like a petty insult to Josefina on first listen, but I think Woods is asking Menendez to acknowledge his own guilt for once. Woods never forgot the innocent blood on his hands. In other words, he's self-aware. It would be easy to just say sorry, but where's Menendez's apology? It's a two-way street. Menendez got dealt a shitty hand, but it was his own choice to respond in the violent way he did. Maybe in a more idealistic game, Menendez would have had some kind of epiphany. Maybe they would have come to some kind of understanding in their final moments. But this just isn't that kind of game. As far as Menendez is concerned, this conversation is over. Both of them are ready to go, so Menendez does the honors. First for Woods, putting his sister's pendant to use one last time, and then for himself, finding Josefina's grave and going out the same way she did. This was the ending I got playing the game for the first time. Back then I didn't get all the nuances on account of being 12, but it leaves a real impression. It's an unsatisfying ending, no one walks away happy, but I love it all the same because that's the exact kind of ending that fits this game like a glove. But why did I do all this? Why did I go through the trouble of synopsizing the plot when this is a character analysis? Well, I consider Menendez to be the best villain in the series because this story could not exist without him. Call of Duty campaigns are by and large stories about war, and more often than not, the thrills of war. But Black Ops 2 is first and foremost about suffering. Treyarch had to give us this charismatic, devious, and terribly human antagonist and show the hell he went through to become that way. They had to. Otherwise, this story and the sobering, bitter tone it went for wouldn't have worked. Overall, I wouldn't say Black Ops 2 is as batshit insane as the first one, but taking the campaign in this direction was still a huge risk, and it's a statement to Treyarch's bravery and willingness to experiment with the Call of Duty formula. So whenever you find yourself replaying Call of Duty Black Ops 2, thank Menendez. He's the horribly tragic, fucked up glue holding all this together. If you're not tired of my voice yet, check out my full start to finish Black Ops 1 retrospective. Let me know in the comments what you think, subscribe, yada yada. Thanks for getting this far. Bye.
Alright. Oh shit. Alright. I think I'm about to do the giveaway now. Probably after this I'm just gonna end it. Alright, let me see. Let's see who is... So how should I do this? Let's see. Alright, let me go to my channel dashboard. I'm just gonna choose a number. Actually, you know what? I am going to get a number from 1 to, let me see how many are commented here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14, and the rest are like just comments from the same person. Alright, okay, so 14. So 1 to 14, and whoever that number lands on is gonna win the giveaway. Alright, so was it 14 or 13? I think it was 14. Okay. 14. Shit. Alright, damn it. Shit. So 14. I got damn it. This doesn't count. Okay, we'll do one. Alright. Roll. Start. 2. Let me get a different one. This is. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Okay. It's 14, right? All right. Spin. Let's see who wins. 14. Okay. Okay. So number 14 is. Let's see. 14. Alright, it's user. Damn it, hold on. Press the wrong button. Alright, it's this one. Lulu. So I don't know if it's a she or he, but they won the giveaway. Alright, cool. Alright, so I'm just gonna email them. You know, so I could send in the giveaway. I'm giving like 3 days to respond. If they don't, then I'm gonna do it again. Obviously. So yeah. Okay. Let me see if they also want it either. Alright, so congratulations for the ending of the giveaway. Alright, let me save this later. I guess that would be it. Close. Alright, I guess that'll be it. I'm gonna end stream now. Kinda tired. Sleepy too. Long ass day. I gotta put in that work. I'm trying to get big. I want this to be my career. Badly. I'm so fucking desperate, bro. Alright, enough rambling. Alright, I'm out. Peace. Peace, peace, peace.